The Journal of Jesse Smoke, Part 8, page 82. White Will's Letter, July 3rd, 1838. Dear Ma and Pa, I'm writing you this letter from camp. Actually, I'm not writing it myself. A friend is helping me with the writing down of it. He is an educated man and knows a lot. I know you are not reading this yourselves, but I expect that you have gotten the preacher or Mr. Redfern at the store to do the reading aloud. Whoever is helping by reading this aloud, I do thank you most kindly. Now that I am writing, I am not sure I have much to say, except that I am well, and that this is an awful hard duty. It is not fair what is happening here. Some days it makes it feel like I want to cry for these poor folks who are Indian, but are living just as we do. That is, they are living the way before we drove them off of their farms. Some of them are even Baptists like us. Doesn't that beat all? They have services every Sunday, so you don't have to worry about my not remembering church here. Their singing is very fine. Tomorrow we shall celebrate our Day of Independence. I wish I could come home to see the parade. I hope that we will be able to come home soon. Your loving son, Private William Bertram. June 4th, 1838. Today was Independence Day. It was not ours. July 5th, 1838. Things White Will has told me. 1. More than 9,000 Cherokees are now in the camps. 2. The army brought in a good many of them, but far more came in peacefully on their own because the chiefs told them to do so. 3. Some other places where Cherokee are being held are Rattlesnake Spring, about 600, Mouse Creek, about 2,500, Bedwell Springs, about 1,000, Gunstocker Spring, 2,000 or so, Chitoti, 1,300, and about 700 here, and 700 more on the east ridge of the agency. 4. About 3,000 Cherokees have been transported west since 1835, counting those sent last year in 2 parties this spring. 5. The river boats are getting so low that it will be hard to send more by boat. 6. General Scott acted in too great a haste to gather us up. The Secretary of War has agreed to John Ross's request that we will be allowed to at least get our crops in first. Secretary of War President sent General Scott guidelines. The Cherokees were only to be collected just before they were transported. October, when the summer heat was past, was the best time to do that. It took Poinset's letter 2 weeks to get to Scott. By then he had already gathered most of us into the camps and could not release us. I asked White Will how it was that he knew so much. He did not turn crimson this time, but a voice was gruff, and he said, I be not able to read, but my pa taught me to be a good listener. Because his duties include serving the officer in charge, White Will has overheard all of these things. July 6, 1838. I've never understood better why mosquitoes and bitter flies were one of the plagues in Egypt. They are so plentiful in the air that one cannot draw a breath without swallowing half a dozen of them. Wherever one's skin is not protected by clothing, one is covered with lumps from their bites. I smell of Camp Cherokee, and that is of a swamp. Though we have been tried to keep our quarters clean, it is more hopeless, with so many and so many sick. Each day more are carried out to be placed in the earth in the shallow graves. No Cherokee can own any of this land except in death, and it is so often that the very young, and the very old. We survive. We may be a nation without children or elders. Or if we survive, we may be a nation without children or elders. July 7, 1838. News of the last 3 parties sent west under guard this June. A small group of Cherokees on that journey tried to run away. They were finally recaptured in the woods near here and brought to our camp. All were near starved, bruised, bleeding, and wounds sustained from their flight. One of their number was so determined to not be sent west again that he had hurled himself over a cliff to avoid capture. Some had been beaten by the soldiers who captured them, so beaten that the poor wretches suffered broken bones, though their only resistance was to run, not fight. General Scott orders to his men may have been forbade unkindness to our people, but a good part of his troops have paid no attention to such commands. July 8, 1838. I am thankful for the health of my mother and sisters and for my own health, but I am not thankful for the salt pork or the water they give us to drink. We do not like the foul water, as some do, but persist in only drinking water after it has been boiled. We cook all of our food with care. Mother says the sickness comes from the water and the bad food and that cooking it will kill the sickness. Her words are echoed by the white missionaries who act as doctors, but not everyone listens. 12 died this week past. One was a woman in childbirth. The baby also perished. Among those 12 who died was one white child, the infant daughter of Reverend Butler. Most of the children still alive have whooping cough. January 9th, 1838. Four Killer's story. Four Killer is a light-skinned man in his late 30s. His blue eyes are evidence of a Scotsman who was his grandfather. He had a good job working in DeKalb County for the New Western and Atlantic Railroad, along with 50 or more other Cherokees. Blue eyes or not, he had a Cherokee name, and he was taken from his work to be imprisoned in a camp. He was one of those who survived escape and recapture. His aim was to reach the hills and the mountains of the North Carolina, where there are many caves and deep woods to hide him. Also, the Oconaluftee Cherokees live there, and they're citizens of North Carolina. As such, have not been compelled to give up their homes. It is rumored that others of our people, especially those poor Cherokees most removed from whites' ways, have already sought refuge in the mountains. When someone here in Camp Cherokee, which many of our people now call Camp Captured, tells us of a missing member, it has sometimes said that the person must have escaped to the hills. They are safe in the hills, we say. They are held by the hills, yet I know that most of them, in fact, numbered among the dead. Four Killers group, over 1,000 Cherokees left by wagon on June 17th. All went fairly well until they reached Waterloo, Alabama, where they were told to climb aboard the flatboats. They knew of the awful condition on board these flatboats. They had no wish to starve and suffer that way. 300 of us threw down our baggage and took to the woods, Four Killer said. Then he laughed. In the woods, those white men were like little children. If we had wanted, we could have knocked them over the head and taken their weapons as they stumbled through the brush. Four Killer has now changed his plans. He will no longer make for North Carolina. Instead, when he escapes again, he will find a laborer's clothing and make his way back to DeKalb County, where his old job awaits him. I will call myself John Campbell, Four Killer said. They will not send a Scottish man to the Indian Territories. July 10th, 1838. 4 more men and 3 women were baptized today. One of the women lost both her infants to fevers. She wept with joy at the thought that she could see them again in the life to come. I wept also, but not for the joy. There are so many losses every day, and the flow of our tears must now equal that of the waters of Babylon, where the exiled Israelites sat down. It is hard not to lose myself in sorrow and give up as have some of our people. My pen is like a lifeline that I must hold, lest to be washed away. So I continue to write. Our good ministers are now worried that they have been too successful. So many wish to attend the services that they have begun building a small space of worship outside the stockade wall. However, it is rumored that some of those white men who are higher up wish to punish them. The white men who come into the compound almost every day to sell whiskey have complained about the Christians. Indian Christians among us have taken oaths that they shall not drink, and they shall encourage others to avoid spirituous liquor. Many of our people who have seen the wounds we inflict upon ourselves and others when we are drunk agree with them. This is not good for the business of whiskey sellers. July 11th, 1838. White Will has given me 2 things today, and I have written another letter for him. He has also asked me about our Cherokee ball game, having learned from someone that I was regarded as a great ball player. We talked for some time about the game. Both of us almost forgot we were here, or some of us about forgot where we were until the time came for the guard to be changed and our numbers counted to see if any had escaped. The first thing White Will brought brought news. The delegation sent by our chiefs to General Scott was successful. No further removals will take place until the fall. Also, John Ross has returned from Washington and is visiting each of the camps. He will be here at Camp Captured this coming week. The second thing was a copy of General Scott's orders to his troops that were posted on May 17, 1838. I have mentioned them before in this journal, but now this is a copy at hand. I can record them exactly. Here is what old Fuss and Feathers wrote. Orders, 25 Headquarters, Eastern Division, Cherokee Agency, Tennessee, May 17, 1838. The Cherokee, by the advances which they have made in Christianity and civilization, are by far the most interesting tribe of the Indians in the territorial limits of the United States. Of the 15,000 of the people who are now to be removed, and the time within which a voluntary immigration was stipulated, will expire on the 23rd instant. It is understood that about 4/5 are opposed or have become adverse to a distant immigration, and although none are in actual conflict with the United States or threaten a resistance by army, yet the troops will probably be obliged to turn the whole country they inhabit in order to make prisoners, and to march or to transport the prisoners by families either to this place or to Ross's Landing or Gunter's Landing, where they are to be finally delivered to the superintendent of the Cherokee immigration. Every possible kindness compatible with the necessity of removal must therefore be shown to the by the troops, and, if in ranks, a despicable individual should be found capable of inflicting a wanton injury or insult on a Cherokee man, woman, or child, it is hereby made the special duty of the nearest good officer or man instantly to interpose and to seize and consign the guilty wretch to the severest penalties of the laws. I read Scott's orders aloud to White Will, who said he could recollect having heard them before. At the time they did not have much meaning for him, and so he had mostly forgotten them. He would, by God, remember them now. July 12, 1838. Today I woke from a dream. I was standing near the hollow tree where I had hid my father's musket. The feeler was with me. He had something in his hand. It was wrapped in deerskin, and I gave it to him. He held it out and showed it to me, then placed it deep within the tree. It was the first time I dreamed pleasantly since coming to this place. It was good to see my great uncle in that dream. I have spent much of the day thinking about him. Dreams are of great importance to our people. Was this dream a message? July 13, 1838. Chief John Ross visited the camp and spoke to the people. He did not bring the best news. The best news would have been that we could return to our homes. That can never be again. Our homes and lands are now firmly in the hands of white men. I am sorry for our homes and our lands. I have not seen it, but some of those on camp allowed passes to seek their lost children have. They said that many of those who have taken our homes seem to be poor housekeepers and have no respect for the living earth. This land will suffer without us. But the good news spoken by Chief Ross was, to some small degree, good news. Though short in stature, when San Udusi speaks, he draws himself up and seems tall as great oak. He is not an orator like the Ridge, but he speaks with such honest certainty that no one doubts his words. We may be allowed to conduct our own removal, San Udusi says in a soft, clear voice. Instead of rough white men with guns forcing us along the trail, we may be led by other Cherokees. We shall not have to travel the dangerous rivers or be placed in roaring trains. Too many precious lives are lost that way. Instead, we may go by land, departing when the fall rains arrive, cooling the land and making travel easier than in the killing summer heat. Chief Ross also spoke of the whiskey traders who prey upon us like vultures on weak lambs. He urged us to drive them out. General Scott has given his blessing to the effort. To that I say hurrah.